This is the Black Narrative.
Yo, what up? I'm Black Ice.
And I'm Accused.
Welcome back to the Black Narrative. We're going to keep it short and sweet for you.
Yes.
Today we'll talk about it's the recent headlines about Lake Lanier.
Yeah.
And how people are no longer allowed to swim in there for now.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we're gonna go over that headline and even go into history and why this should be important to black people.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we can get into this first clip.
Water park is not letting anyone get in the water. Here's video from News Chopper 2 over Margaritaville at Lanier Lakes, where the beach is open, but no one's swimming in it. Management told Channel 2's Brian Mims it's for safety.
For Wendy Brown, this is the ultimate lake life. Sliding her paddleboard onto Lanier's clear water, gliding beneath a blue sky. Out here, there is no fencing her in.
To put a fence up at a beach just makes no sense. It's ridiculous, if you ask me.
But there is a fence in the water all along the beach at Margaritaville on Lake Lanier.
I mean, it's not a beach. It's just sand.
The management of the water park says you can sit on the
Isn't that
sand and
weird?
soak up the sun all you want.
Yeah,
just
look
don't get in the water. In a statement, it says
I
the
wouldn't mind
safety of
that,
guests is prioritized
for obvious
above all
reasons.
else.
One
After
day,
careful
one day,
consideration, we have decided to no longer offer swimming in the lake area. While we understand that this may be disappointing for some, we believe it is the right decision to maintain a safe environment for all our guests to enjoy, and will allow us to put added focus on other parts of the park to offer a better overall experience for all our water park guests.
You know, my thing is, if you want to go to a beach, go to a real beach, first of all.
Man,
Not Lake Lanier.
You see, sometimes they bring people on the news that can't talk, because for her to say, it's not a beach, it's just sand. It's kind of the point. A beach is a beach, whether you're freaking swimming in it or kayaking in it, lady. Your white self being in the beach is not. That's not what's going to make the beach the beach. You don't make the beach the beach. The beach is just the beach. You see how privileged some people are.
Yeah, but it's probably easy to find too, man. Get married. This is Forsyth County. You know what I mean? It's Forsyth County.
That's fine. She is Forsyth. She's represented pretty well.
Yeah, so it's not surprising here.
Yeah.
But it's weird. I mean, first of all, you want to go to the beach, go to a real beach.
Yeah.
Second of all, you can tell people just getting tired of getting sued to death, basically.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Because, I saw some people in the comments why is this such an issue? And then, yes, people drowned this last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There. And one was, only 30 meters out. It wasn't that far out. So, people are getting tired of paying up, man. So, they're going to shut that thing down.
Man, and the thing about it is, everybody complains when all these different laws are put into place. But it's one of those things where y'all sue. Y'all sue all the time. And so...
you should be swimming out there. You don't know how to swim.
That's it.
But, as black people, you shouldn't be out there anyway because basically that's a barrier. Lake Lanier is a barrier ground. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. I know some people saw the story of... the first time you hear about Lake Lanier, it's probably an episode of Atlanta.
Yeah.
A couple seasons ago, they did a story about it. But there is real history. So you want to get into it and... let you check it out here.
Oscarville was a small town in the county of Forsyth in the state of Georgia. In 1912, the white population drove the black population out of Oscarville with threats and violence. This event was triggered by crimes against two white women, allegedly at the hands of black men. Homes and churches were destroyed, and
that's like the calling card. They do that every time.
Right.
Somebody it always start off with an alleged rape. It's a white woman, and to justify them murdering us and running us off.
Right, because of the black brute. But the issue is a lot more people than just white folk are taking on that mindset when it comes to black men. But it's a different story.
An estimated 1,100 people were displaced. This was not the first time that Oscarville had been the site of racial violence. In the 1830s, the white population forcibly removed Cherokee farmers from their properties and forced the Cherokees away from Oscarville forever. Welcome to Intrigued Mind, where today we explore Oscarville, the city drowned by Lake Lanier. Lake Lanier is the site of multiple mysterious deaths and disappearances that have plagued this man-made lake for as long as it has been in existence. Many people believe that the lake is haunted because it was constructed on top of a town. That town was called Oscarville. Located in Forsyth County, it still exists today, but it is submerged beneath as much as 152 feet of water, though the remnants of Oscarville were revealed during droughts between 2000 and 2009. So, what happened to the residents of that town? Who were they, and why did they leave? And what other mysteries does this submerged city's tragic past lay claim to? Keep watching to learn all about the secrets of Oscarville, the town that was flooded by Lake Lanier. Oscarville was a town in Forsyth County, which lies in the northern part of the state of Georgia. Today, this county is characterized by a predominantly white population. Yet, this was not always the case. In 1912, each and every black resident was forcibly relocated. An estimated 1,100 people, comprising 10% of Oscarville's population, were removed from their homes and sent into exile. But what events precipitated this racial cleansing? In September of that year, before the white people drove out their black neighbors, a young woman was found in the nearby woods. She was beaten, bloodied, and unconscious. The woman was 18-year-old Sleety Mae Crow. The girl later died of her injuries, 1 week shy of her 19th birthday. It was believed that she had been struck from behind and dragged into the woods while walking home from her aunt's house. Her assailant raped her before striking her in the head with a rock at least 3 times, crushing her skull. A black man named Rob Edwards, whose only crime was to be in the area at the time of the attack, was quickly seized. Edwards was unlawfully hung in the town square, with many of the white community present. His body was strung up on a telephone pole, and white onlookers fired bullets into his lifeless body. 2 more people would be executed for this still unsolved murder: 16-year-old Edward Knox, whom the girl allegedly accused on her deathbed, and a 17-year-old Oscar Daniel. The 2 boys were put on trial, found guilty, and handed down a sentence of death by hanging. Earlier that same week, another white woman was allegedly assaulted by 2 black men. Ellen Greesh, the wife of a well-respected farmer, accused 2 black men, Tony Howell and Isaiah Perkle, of attempting to rape her, before they were startled and scared away by her mother. These men were imprisoned, awaiting trial. A black preacher by the name of Grant Allen was alleged to have speculated at a community barbecue that Greesh may have given consent to sexual relations with Howell and Perkle. Word of this speculation reached the ears of the white members of the community, who were enraged at the suggestion. An angry mob captured Grant Allen and horsewhipped him until he was nearly dead. The local sheriff managed to intervene just in time to drag the preacher to the safety of the courthouse. Regardless of whether these black men were guilty of the crimes they were accused of or not, it acted as a flame to a powder keg. The night of Sleety Mae Crow's funeral, enraged white men gathered at the town's crossroads, armed with guns and sticks of dynamite. They descended on the black population with fury, spurred on by sensational news reports and the support of Crow's parents, who went on record to say that they wished to be rid of the town's black people, whom they referred to as the fiends of hell. In the coming months, these white vigilantes, known collectively as the Night Riders, drove the black community out of town. It is estimated that in the early months of the racial cleansing, that 98% of Oscarville's black community fled in fear, never to return.
They fled in fear, but yeah, these are the violent rapists.
Right.
They'd be the ones that be more fighting back, but it's like you already know the rapist wasn't black.
Right. Exactly. But that's an example of projection.
Yeah.
At a large scale.
The cabins of Oscarville's black population were scattered along the banks of the Chattahoochee River on the outskirts of town. The Night Riders would go to each and every white home to call up the adult men of the family to join the group. It is worth remembering that it had only been 50 years earlier that a white man was legally allowed to pursue escaped slaves in the days before the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation. Therefore, when the knock on the door came after sundown to join the Night Riders' posse, it may not have seemed a foreign concept to these men at all. It took a few months for these so-called Night Riders to drive the black people out of Oscarville and from nearby towns such as Cumming. Those members of the black community who served in the wealthy houses of the upper-class white families in the neighboring town of Cumming were afforded some protection. But the poor sharecroppers, landowners, and cotton pickers, who were the most vulnerable, were the first to flee the town. The Night Riders' main modus operandi was to throw stones through windows, to fire gunshots through front doors, and to shout out, "Get!" to the terrified inhabitants within. Furniture was burned, pets and livestock were shot, and messages were left behind, giving inhabitants 24 hours to leave. One white woman, Ruth Jordan, who was just a girl at the time of the racial cleansing, recounted one night when she accompanied her father, who was friendly with his black neighbors, to check on their safety. They found their neighbor's cabin empty, the furniture shot to pieces. When her father called out, their neighbors, the Cooks, emerged from the woods, where they had spent the night, hiding in terror. By mid-October, it was reported in the news that many black homes had been torched and razed to the ground, along with 5 churches where black people worshipped. The exiled literally had no place to return to. By burning their churches, the Night Riders struck at the very heart of the spiritual and social fabric of Oscarville's black community. By late October, violent means were no longer necessary. All it took was for the night riders to leave a tied-up bundle of sticks on a cabin's front porch in the morning, and the family who dwelled there would be gone by sundown. Such was the depth of their terror. The white farmers who remained in Oscarville went on to prosper after the racial cleansing of 1912. In fact, they were so successful that Oscarville was one of the few farming communities to survive both the Great Depression and the boll weevil attacks on cotton that had plagued the area since 1915. However, the fact that Oscarville primarily comprised farming land made it a target for developers who wanted to create a water supply for the fast-growing Atlanta metro. All but 5 residents were asked to sell their land to the government for this project. In 1947, a deal was struck between the Chamber of Commerce and the Industrial Bureau for the construction of the Buford Dam, which took 4 years to complete, and by 1959, Lake Lanier was filled for the first time. By this time, the farming town that was Oscarville had completely disappeared, only living on via a handful of old maps, archived newspaper articles, and local oral history. About 1,100 people lost their livelihoods and their homes during the 1912 racial cleansing of Oscarville. A few families sold their properties for dirt cheap. The majority just left. No longer able to make a living off the land they were forced to abandon, they were unable to pay their taxes. This meant that their property was seized by the government. The white farmers who remained often simply took possession of them. All this made it much simpler to legally flood the land that was many people's ancestral home. Perhaps the saddest part of this dark chapter in America's history is...
Nah, bro. Hey. Yeah, that's the history of Lake Lanier.
And
I'll F with it.
It's I remember when I used to market, I went over I've been over to Lake Lanier and the Buford Dam, and it's interesting how, but the Buford Dam, if it were to break, Metro Atlanta would be flooded. That's how large and how much water they stored over at Lake Lanier. But they've...
And it's funny, it was so messed up about it. If you look up the history of Lake Lanier, like from different news sources, they won't mention Oscarville. They just mention, the Metro Atlanta need a water source and they built the dam. Like, don't mention the part about flowing out the town. Don't mention, the false accusations of rape and the terrorizing the black residents and moving them out.
And that's one thing, the video did, did an okay job at portraying the story, but I think they were very generous because first off, they didn't talk about the white folk actually hurting anybody outside of those that were accused or spoke about the accused. They didn't talk about the people that were actually hurt during these different things because it wasn't just one of those things where the white man would just leave a warning.
No, they should know. They leave examples, of violent examples. These are some barbarians.
And another thing that they didn't touch on was the government's involvement with them coming and wiping out Oscarville and building a dam there.
Yeah.
So all these, there were certain things that weren't touched on, but
I get the point. You
get the gist as to why Lake Lanier is not a place that you should be dipping your feet in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one big burial ground.
Yeah,
basically, and think about it. It's only 2 generations back that this happened.
Oh man, and 2 generations back from them was slavery.
Yeah, that's it. Like this stuff was not like a long time ago.
Yeah,
not at all. Like this is 1960. Around the time my mom was born. You know what I mean? So this stuff is not that long ago, but. So I just thought it'd be a good idea to kind of share a little bit of history of what's going on. Like, people know about Lake Lanier. Yeah, they got a little fence in the water. Right. Yeah, but there's another reason why you really shouldn't be up there. Yeah,
and it's interesting that it's come up so much and it's been such a topic of discussion because here as Atlanta natives, we've been known about Lake Lanier and we've been known with that we ain't gonna swim in it.
All right, yeah, we ain't fooling with it. We ain't fooling with it at all. But I hope y'all enjoyed it. We appreciate y'all. We just wanted to drop a little knowledge here and there. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anything on that?
Just stay vigilant, family.
All right, shalom.
Shalom.